Happy New Year, everyone. This is Melanie from Chasing Fi. I took a few days off from YouTube, spent some time with my family and friends. It was really great. Relaxed for like a week and a half. It was an awesome way to start off the new year. But in the midst of my downtime, I found myself itching to look at houses. My husband was the same way. And between Christmas and New Year's, we looked at four houses, three in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and one in Oak Park, Michigan. We even made an offer on one of those three in Fort Wayne that we looked at, but someone else was willing to waive the inspection, so they beat us out. Inventory is low in the housing market, as I'm sure all of you know, but at first glance, there seem to be a lot of great homes out there just waiting to be purchased. And in a way, that's true, but you've got to be careful. Pictures only tell part of the story. For example, the basement often holds secrets, and a close up of the roof can show a quick fix patchwork that is a sign of aging and disrepair. One of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of these houses, you don't get to see things like that. You get to see the beautiful living room, the freshly painted walls, and the nice laminate floors, and all of that is great. But some of these pictures, they're taken at angles that don't show you the truth, or they're a little blurry, which of course reeks of suspicion. The other thing that we ran into is that a good looking house can be surrounded by neighbors who allow junk to accumulate in their front yards. And one house that we looked at, it actually had three neighbors. One of them had like a shed that was falling down that was built like in the front yard, which is strange. Another one had a bunch of broken down cars, furniture, boxes, like all types of things in front of their house. So this didn't look like an inviting place really for anyone to live, let alone a renter to, choose out of all the rental properties that are out there to come to this house that was nice, but it was sitting in the midst of what looked like a junkyard. And it also, that house had an old fuse box where like you have to go down and change the fuse every time something goes out, like old school, probably from the 40s or 50s. So obviously it hadn't been updated much in that manner. So we came across all these different scenarios while we were looking at these houses, and it was a good learning experience. I mean, I learned so much in a week because obviously, I want rental properties, but I've learned that like all those nice pictures, they're just you can't let that go to your head. You've got to say, let me see the furnace. Let me see the water heater. Can you zero in on that roof? Things like that. Things that aren't, something that you're generally thinking about, well, in terms of me, because I like the aesthetic of a house. I like, when the furniture matches the walls and things like that. And I like these nice, intricate details, like in the bathroom and things like that. But now, as someone who's looking for rental properties, well, that's great, but take me to the bathroom. Let me see if it's falling apart. If you got mold or something, take me in the basement. Let me see what's going on down there. Show me the roof, all that good stuff. So, here are some things that I learned from our experiences this past week. Number one, if a house is priced the same or less as other houses in the area that are for sale, and it's on the market a week after it's posted, something is wrong. For example, we looked at a cute duplex in Fort Wayne that was priced at $129,000. The price was slightly lower than other houses in the area. One unit had been completely remodeled, it looked great, and the upstairs unit was rented for $450. This was a red flag. Well, there were two red flags here. First of all, there weren't any pictures of the upper unit, but of course, that can sometimes be because the owner doesn't want to disturb the tenant. But the fact that it was being rented for $450 a month was also a red flag because that was way below average rents in the area. Once again, This could be because the tenant has been there for a long time. We have long term tenants and they are paying a lot less than market rent because they've been there so long. We obviously haven't raised the rent enough, but so I understand those scenarios. And when you took the virtual tour of the house, like initially it looked really good, but right before the realtor hopped on Zoom and showed us the house, we were looking through the pictures one more time, and there was a little place at the top corner of one of the bedrooms. And in the corner where the ceiling met the wall, there was something black. And I was like, is that mold or something? What is that? We couldn't really see it on the picture. So of course, as soon as we started the virtual tour, we asked, what is that spot up there? So of course, it's not just a spot. Once you're looking at it live, you can see that basically the house is kind of sinking. I mean, this house is 120 years old, so you expect some settlement, but this house was sinking. It was to the point where it was so uneven that when you stepped out in the hallway, the realtor said that you kind of like were on a slope down to the kitchen. This was a little hallway too, but it was kind of like a slope down into the kitchen. And in this room, you could see that like the house was settling. It had settled so much that like it was bowing down on one side. And so that's why we didn't see the upstairs unit. And that's why there weren't any basement pictures. Well, of course, we asked the realtor to take us down into the basement, and he just said, you know what, there's been a lot of settlement here. And this house also, I noticed that it had been listed, pulled, and then relisted. So at one point, it had a pending sale, and then it went back to active. I thought, okay, that's got to mean something, and it does. What it means is that there was a buyer until they got to the house and went in the basement. The basement had a wall that looked like it had a bubble in it, a gigantic bubble in the middle of it where the house was sagging on one side. Now, like I said, settlement is something. This house was built 120 years ago. It's going to settle, but there's a point where you can lessen the effect of the settlement, but that wasn't done. So now it's at a point where, I mean, if you're going to correct this issue, it's not going to be worth your money to do that. So of course, we didn't go with that. So yeah, if a house is on the market like 2 weeks after it's posted and it's around the same amount the other houses for sale are posted in the area, if it's been on there for like 2 weeks, something's wrong, because at this time houses are going, if 5 days is a lot at this point. So if it's on there for like 2 weeks, yeah, something's wrong. The second thing I learned is get ready to offer big. The third house we viewed was $204,900. It was a 5-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom house in a good school district, and it was in a desirable area. So this gives you an indication of how the market is right now. We viewed that house 10 a.m. last Sunday. We really liked it. There were a few things we didn't like. For example, they had steam heat and 2 mini splits instead of central air. There were some window units which indicated that the mini splits couldn't cool the entire house. So that was something that we didn't like. And also the boiler, it was dated like 2003. So we're thinking that's probably at the end of its lifespan. And we later on found out that those are pretty expensive to replace if you want a decent one. Ideally, we want a property with forced air and central air for cooling. Even so, it was a great home. So we made an offer of $226,000, but someone else agreed to waive the inspection. So they beat out our offer. That house was on the market for less than 48 hours. It came on the market, they had an open house the next day, and it was contingent by 10 o'clock that night. Our agent told us that his boss basically said, listen, if you are making an offer on a decent house in a decent area, if that offer doesn't seem absolutely crazy, way too much, you're not getting that house, because that's what people are doing. So you have to be prepared to be generous with your offers. With that said, the third thing that I learned is actually a balance to the second thing. So, yes, you need to make a big offer. You need to be ready to go above and beyond what they're asking. But to balance that out, it's important to remember that in the Midwest, houses that are priced too high will most likely come down. So when you see them and they're priced maybe 50,000 above what they should be for that area, wait. There are a few that will slip through the cracks, but because there are just more houses in the Midwest, when sellers put up houses that are overpriced, they linger. For example, we looked at a house in Michigan that was priced at $200,000. Houses in the area are going for anywhere from like, I don't know, 130,000 on one end of town to there's one out there that's I think priced like 330,000. That one hasn't sold yet, but it's not unheard of to have those prices, that variance in this town that we're looking in because why? There are 3 school districts there. So this is super important. And it's a single family town. You know, like all these houses are for single families. You're not going to have a ton of single people moving in because a few towns over, like just a few minutes away, maybe 10 minutes away, you have 2 towns that are very good for single people. There are more apartments. There's a nightlife. There's a nice little downtown, things like that. So you're not going to have those people moving into Oak Park. You're going to have families. So if you're trying to rent to families, then those school districts really matter. Sadly, the house we looked at was located in the worst school district out of the 3, and this school district is pretty bad. It is at a point where their students, less than 10%, are proficient in math, and less than 20% are proficient in English. They are really focused on athletics. As a former teacher, I'm really not comfortable with that. I don't really want my renters to be in an area where they have to send their kids to this like really bad school. So that's something that I did think about as we were looking at this house. In addition to that, it was a bit dated. It needed a new roof. There was patchwork up there. You could tell things were kind of falling apart. It was at the end of its life. It needed a new furnace. The furnace looked like it may have been the furnace from like, I'm going to say this furnace probably was from the 1960s. And you think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. And when we looked at it, there was a light blinking on it. And my husband says, it's pulling a code. Like that's not good. Something's wrong. They need to find out what's going on there. So there was that going on. And then the water heater also was extremely old. I've never seen one like it before. Like it was just, everything was pretty dated in terms of furnace, water heater, all that stuff. Electric as well needed to be redone. And this house said that it had 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, but the pictures online don't give you the real story. Because the real story is that they have 1 bathroom on the main level that is in decent shape, but then they have a second bathroom in the basement that could be a full bathroom, only the shower is not usable. So in the picture, the shower is off in the distance and you don't see that like the entire bottom of the shower is like crunched up. Like you can't use it. It's got to be replaced. So technically this house really only has 1.5 bathrooms and you're going to have to fix that shower if you're going to be renting it anytime soon. So that to us was just like $200,000. I mean, it's not a bad house, but no. Oh, and there also was a tree growing underneath the garage. You're going to need to have that removed. So we're talking about, we did do the numbers and it'll be about $28,000 in work if we did everything that really needs to be done there. So I'm confident, relatively confident that that price, $200,000, will fall over the next few weeks. Other houses in the neighborhood are worth $200,000 or more, but they have either the better school district or the best school district and some updates. The fourth thing that I learned is that there are still good deals out there. We're eager But each time we run into something that has a major drawback, we agree that we need to wait for something better. The market is tight, but there are options. You can choose a city that isn't booming just yet, but showing signs of taking off, or you can look for houses in places you think will boom soon. That's kind of our strategy at this point. Right now, we can't get a house in Utah. It's just no. The only thing that is in our price range in Utah in terms of rentals would be condos and not nice ones. So we're skipping the West. We're doing the Midwest because we believe that people will migrate back there within the next decade. Those cities are already starting to grow, and some of them are on the cusp of seeing their houses are appreciating like 15, 16, 17%. So we know that the houses are appreciating, they're building in those places. So we know that there's going to be some population shifting back there. There are also some places where they aren't quite seeing that yet, but there's a chance, a good chance, because these places are in the same states that are seeing other cities boom. For example, Toledo, Ohio is not a happening place yet, but I think we'll see more people move into that area in the next 10 years. It's not a rich city, and a lot of people rent there. So even though they have lost a lot of population and, it's probably not like an ideal place to buy a rental, you could look around the University of Toledo and probably pick up a property for much less than you would in some of the more competitive markets. And since it's by a college, you could probably keep that rented. Maybe Toledo makes a comeback at some point and you are able to increase rent or sell and make a profit. It is a big gamble, but everything is. So we're not completely moving that off the table. We do have some money that we can spend on these rentals, but we are being realistic where we're not going to be buying a rental in Utah or Colorado or Arizona or any of those places where we're just not going to get the same bang for a buck. If we go back east, then we can pick up the 4 rentals that we want to pick up this year. If we buy in Utah, we're going to struggle to get even one. So is Toledo a place where we might look? We would consider it. We would consider it. There'd have to be a few more factors working in there. It'd have to be a steal, but we might consider that. Right now, we're focused on the cities that are seeing more of a population boom, like Fort Wayne and Cincinnati's doing well, and some of the places around Detroit are really growing. So those are the places that we're focused in right now. But if it got to the point where those markets were just too competitive, we would consider maybe stepping into a less competitive market with the idea that we would get decent cash flow, because even though Toledo is not, it's not seeing a population boom, rents are actually somewhat high for what's going on in the area, but you can still see decent cash flow. And at some point, I think you will see Toledo grow some. So that's a gamble that we have considered. So far, we haven't gone that route because we are still doing okay in the competitive markets. Like that house that we put in an offer on, we would have had that if we had been willing to waive the inspection, but we weren't willing to do that. Number one, we don't live in Indiana, so it's not like if something major is wrong, we can't go over there and check it out and get it fixed. It would be a big hassle, so we need the inspection. So we didn't do that, but we would have had that house otherwise, I think. So after another round of virtual tours of homes, we still haven't found our second rental, but we're not discouraged. There are a few things in the pipeline, so we'll keep looking and weighing our options. And eventually, we are going to have our rentals. I can feel it. Very confident about that. So until next time, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.